the green light for Tier 4B, and the revaluation journey for more than 2 decades. A quiet yet determined community of currency holders has carried a vision. The belief that certain undervalued national currencies, most prominently the Iraqi Dinar RV and the Vietnamese Dong VND, would one day undergo a dramatic and historic revaluation. To outsiders, this movement often appeared eccentric, speculative, or even unrealistic. But for those inside the circle, this belief has not only been a matter of financial strategy, but also one of resilience, trust, and anticipation. Today, that anticipation has moved into reality. After countless delays, speculation cycles, and unverified claims, new reports confirm that Tier 4B, the category reserved for ordinary individual holders, has been officially authorized to move forward. Banks have finalized their readiness protocols, exchange centers have been prepared, and a clear date, September 8, 2025, has been marked as the official celebration of this monumental shift. This first section of our report dives into the heart of this development. We will revisit the long journey of this revaluation narrative, clarify the meaning of Tier 4B, explain why this tier is unique compared to earlier categories, examine the process of preparation that brought us here, and discuss why September 8th was deliberately chosen as the defining moment. The long road of anticipation, the story of the Iraqi dinar, and the Vietnamese dong as speculative assets stretches back to the early 2000s. After the US-led invasion of Iraq in 2003, the Iraqi dinar became a subject of speculation when its value collapsed under international sanctions and domestic instability. Before the Gulf Wars, the dinar once traded at much higher levels, reflecting Iraq's vast oil wealth. When it depreciated drastically, many observers assumed that once Iraq regained political stability and resumed full-scale energy exports, the currency would inevitably rebound. The Vietnamese dong followed a different trajectory. Vietnam, after years of war and economic isolation, adopted policies in the 1990s and 2000s designed to boost exports and attract foreign investment. To remain competitive, the government kept the dong undervalued. While this boosted manufacturing and trade surpluses, it created a situation where the currency's official value failed to match the country's actual economic strength. Together, these two stories formed the backbone of what became known as the revaluation movement. Currency enthusiasts, small investors, and ordinary people purchased dinar and dong in hopes that one day both currencies would be reset to values more in line with their economic fundamentals. Over the years, communities sprang up on internet forums, conference calls, newsletters, and YouTube channels. These communities shared updates, compared rumors, and speculated endlessly about when the RV, short for revaluation, would occur. For many, this was not only about money, but also about belonging to something greater. A global financial event that promised both personal freedom and collective transformation. Understanding tiers and the meaning of Tier 4B within the currency revaluation community, one phrase carried almost mythical significance. Tier 4B, the concept of tiers originated from the belief that revaluation exchanges would not happen for everyone simultaneously. Instead, they would be rolled out in phases, beginning with institutions, sovereign nations, and large humanitarian organizations, before eventually reaching the general public. Tier 1. Central banks, governments, and sovereign entities. Tier 2. Major institutional investors and trusts. Tier 3. Humanitarian projects, philanthropic funds, and select private groups. Tier 4A. Smaller groups and networks with connections to structured exchange programs. Tier 4B. The everyday individual, ordinary citizens who bought and held currencies through dealers or private purchases. For nearly 2 decades, Tier 4B has symbolized the grassroots level of this movement. It represents not the elite, but the teachers, veterans, retirees, small business owners, and families who bought and saved these currencies quietly, sometimes in the face of ridicule. While earlier tiers were thought to have access to structured programs and insider rates, Tier 4B was seen as the people's tier. It stood for hope that wealth redistribution would not only favor governments or wealthy institutions, but also flow down to average men and women across the globe. Now, for the first time, confirmation has emerged that Tier 4B has been activated. This marks a profound milestone. The long wait is finally giving way to practical execution. Banks and protocols. Why this time is different over the years, countless rumors have circulated about the revaluation being just around the corner. Each time, currency holders were told to prepare for imminent changes, only for the timeline to shift again. Skeptics dismissed the entire idea as a perpetual cycle of false hope. So why should this announcement be taken seriously? The difference lies in infrastructure readiness. Recent reports indicate that major banks, including Wells Fargo, Chase, HSBC, and Bank of America, have completed their final systems checks. This includes 1. Transaction simulations. Banks have tested large-scale currency conversions within internal systems to ensure no breakdowns occur when exchanges begin. 2. Security protocols. Advanced measures to verify currency authenticity, prevent fraud, and safeguard participant data. 3. Staff training. Bank employees and specialized redemption center personnel have been trained to handle the logistics of exchanges with professionalism and discretion. 4. Customer scheduling systems. Online portals are prepared to allow Tier 4B participants to book appointments without overwhelming branches. This level of preparation signals a seriousness absent from past speculative cycles. What was once rumor now appears to be structured, coordinated, and ready for activation. Why September 8, 2025? Among the most intriguing aspects of this announcement is the chosen date. September 8, 2025. Far from being random, this timing is strategic on multiple levels. 1. Alignment with fiscal cycles. International banking and financial institutions operate on specific reporting periods. Early September marks the beginning of new fiscal quarters for many organizations, making it easier to integrate large-scale monetary adjustments without disrupting reporting systems. 2. Iraq's Gazette publication. In Iraq, official financial and governmental changes are documented in the Gazette. Aligning the revaluation with publication cycles ensures international legitimacy and recognition. 3. Economic momentum. Both Iraq and Vietnam are currently experiencing favorable economic conditions. Iraq's oil revenues and diversified exports are surging, while Vietnam continues to attract foreign investment and maintain steady trade surpluses. Launching during a time of strength increases global confidence. 4. Symbolism. September 8th symbolizes the culmination of a journey. It has been framed as a date of renewal and financial rebirth, a point where years of patience meet tangible results. The convergence of fiscal, political, and symbolic factors suggests this date was not chosen casually, but carefully designed for maximum impact. A turning point in the narrative, the activation of Tier 4B is more than just a financial event. It represents a psychological shift for a community that has endured skepticism, delays, and uncertainty. For years, holders were told to wait. Now, for the first time, they are being told, prepare to act. This change transforms the narrative from anticipation to execution. The theories, debates, and speculations are giving way to instructions, systems, and scheduled timelines. For currency holders, this marks the threshold of a new era. No longer is the revaluation a distant dream. It is unfolding in real time, supported by visible preparations from major institutions. The global significance of Tier 4B. Why does Tier 4B matter so much? Because it represents not the privileged few, but the everyday person. The participation of ordinary individuals elevates this revaluation from a government-level financial adjustment to a grassroots economic transformation. If successful, Tier 4B could stand as one of the largest examples of wealth redistribution in modern history. It has the potential to empower individuals, strengthen families, and revitalize communities. But equally important, it shows that global financial changes are not restricted to elites. They can include everyday citizens who had the foresight to prepare. The confirmation that Tier 4B has been greenlit represents a monumental turning point. After years of anticipation, speculation, and preparation, the ordinary holders of IQD and VND are finally being brought into the fold. With September 8, 2025, set as the official celebration date, the world is preparing to witness a financial realignment of historic proportions. This is not merely another rumor. It is an organized, structured event backed by infrastructure, timing, and legitimacy. For the millions who have waited, this is the moment when patience transforms into opportunity. The long journey of anticipation has reached its critical milestone. The next steps will carry profound consequences, not only for individuals, but for global markets and financial history itself. Economic foundations behind the revaluation of the Iraqi Dinar, IQD, and Vietnamese Dong, VND, is not simply a matter of speculation or wishful thinking. At its core, this historic financial event rests upon real economic foundations, geopolitical shifts, and structural reforms that have been developing for decades. To understand why a dual revaluation is both significant and possible, one must explore the deeper stories of Iraq and Vietnam, the two nations at the center of this movement. This section will break down the economic fundamentals behind the revaluation, analyze the role of each nation's unique trajectory, explore why a dual revaluation matters globally, and consider how financial institutions and markets are preparing to absorb its impact. Iraq, wealth beneath the surface. 1. Oil as the cornerstone. Iraq holds one of the largest proven reserves of crude oil in the world, estimated at over 140 billion barrels. Energy exports account for more than 90% of government revenue. Despite decades of conflict, sanctions, and political instability, Iraq remains a central player in the global energy market. The Iraqi dinar's low valuation has long been incongruent with the country's resource wealth. When comparing Iraq to other oil-rich nations, such as Kuwait or Saudi Arabia, the disparity becomes striking. These countries enjoy strong currencies supported by their export surpluses, while Iraq's currency has remained suppressed due to historical circumstances rather than economic fundamentals. 2. Political and institutional stabilization. Since the fall of Saddam Hussein, Iraq has struggled with governance challenges, corruption, and terrorism. However, in recent years, progress has been made. Improved security conditions have encouraged foreign investment. Partnerships with international oil companies have modernized production capabilities. Banking reforms backed by the IMF and World Bank have strengthened the financial sector. The Iraqi government has actively sought reintegration into the international community, settling debts, reforming institutions, and stabilizing its currency system. The confirmation of revaluation reflects these steps toward normalization. 3. Reclaiming regional influence. Iraq's revaluation is more than financial, it is symbolic. For decades, the nation's economic potential was overshadowed by conflict. A stronger dinar not only boosts Iraq's purchasing power, but also reasserts its importance in Middle Eastern politics and global trade. As Iraqi economist Karim al-Sudani emphasized, the revaluation is not just about numbers, but about Iraq, reclaiming its rightful place on the global economic stage. Vietnam, the hidden giant of Southeast Asia. 1. The export-driven strategy. Vietnam has been one of the fastest-growing economies in Asia for more than 2 decades. Since initiating the Doi Moi reforms in 1986, the country has transformed from a war-torn nation into a manufacturing powerhouse. Multinational corporations such as Samsung, Intel, Nike, and Apple's suppliers have invested heavily in Vietnam's industrial zones. Low labor costs, a skilled workforce, and trade agreements have positioned Vietnam as a key alternative to China for global supply chains. To maintain competitiveness, Vietnam has deliberately kept the dong undervalued. By making exports cheaper, this policy has fueled trade surpluses and attracted foreign investment. However, this has also suppressed the true strength of the currency. 2 strong economic indicators. Vietnam's economic performance paints a picture of resilience and strength. GDP growth, consistently between 8% annually over the last decade. Foreign direct investment, FDI, billions of dollars annually flow into manufacturing, technology, and infrastructure. Trade surpluses. Vietnam exports more than it imports, strengthening its reserves. Foreign exchange reserves, rising steadily, reflecting confidence in monetary policy. The dong's low valuation contrasts sharply with these fundamentals. Experts like financial strategist Professor Liam Trana call it a hidden giant, a currency whose potential has been masked for decades. 3. A shift in strategy. While undervaluation once served Vietnam well, the time has come for recalibration. A stronger dong would encourage greater domestic consumption, elevate Vietnam's global financial standing, support its growing role as a regional economic leader in ASEAN. The revaluation thus represents a natural evolution of Vietnam's economic policy. The dual revaluation, Why both nations together? The simultaneous revaluation of the Iraqi dinar and Vietnamese dong is not coincidental. It represents a strategic alignment of two nations with different but complementary narratives. Iraq, a resource-rich nation recovering from conflict, seeking to restore currency strength tied to oil wealth. Vietnam, a manufacturing hub with suppressed currency strength, now ready to elevate its economic status. By linking these two revaluations, global markets are confronted with a broader recalibration, not just of one currency, but of two currencies from two very different regions. This enhances the legitimacy and impact of the revaluation, signaling a global financial restructuring rather than a localized adjustment. Global market impacts 1. The Forex market. The foreign exchange Forex market operates as the largest financial market in the world, with daily transactions exceeding $6 trillion. Even small shifts in currency valuations can ripple across the globe. The revaluation of the IQD and VND will demand adjustments from traders, institutions, and governments alike. Already, Forex platforms are experiencing heightened discussions, with traders recalibrating strategies to account for these upcoming shifts. Two commodity markets. Commodities, particularly oil and gold, often reflect broader economic confidence. Analysts have observed oil markets stabilizing in anticipation of Iraq's enhanced role as a reliable supplier. Gold prices steadying, suggesting that investors view the revaluation as a stabilizing event rather than a disruptive one. 3. Trade relationships. Vietnam's trade partners, especially in Asia, Europe, and the US, are preparing for adjustments. Stronger dong values will reshape export competitiveness, forcing renegotiation of contracts and recalibration of supply chain costs. Meanwhile, Iraq's stronger dinar will increase its purchasing power, boosting imports of goods and services from global markets. Expert voices. Karim al-Sudani, Iraq, frames the revaluation as both an economic correction and a national symbol of pride. Iraq is stepping back into global relevance. Professor Liam Trana, Vietnam, calls the dong a hidden giant ready to be recognized globally. Views the revaluation as the culmination of decades of policy foresight. John Peterson, U.S. banking insider, highlights Tier 4B as the moment when speculation turns into reality for ordinary holders. Describes bank systems as fully primed and confident. The convergence of these voices, from academic, regional, and financial perspectives, underscores the credibility of this moment. Banking system readiness. One of the most critical aspects of this revaluation is the banking infrastructure being prepared to handle it. Reports indicate redemption centers have been quietly established to ensure secure and efficient exchanges. Structured payout options are under consideration, including higher rates for those willing to commit funds to humanitarian or development projects. Scheduling portals will go live after the September 8th celebration, preventing chaos at local branches. The precision of these preparations reflects years of behind-the-scenes planning. Why this moment matters globally. The Iraqi dinar and Vietnamese dong may seem like niche currencies, but their revaluation carries global significance. Symbol of financial redistribution. Wealth moving from governments and elites into the hands of ordinary citizens. Geopolitical signal. Iraq and Vietnam stepping into stronger roles in their respective regions. Market confidence. The event is being treated as a stabilizing force rather than a disruptive shock. This is not simply about numbers on a screen, it is about rebalancing economic narratives and empowering nations that were once underestimated. The economic foundations behind the revaluation of the IQD and VND are clear. Iraq, with its vast energy wealth and growing stability, is ready to reclaim a stronger currency. Vietnam, with its manufacturing success and trade surpluses, is ready to let the dong reflect its true economic performance. By revaluing together, these two nations create a powerful dual event that reshapes not only their own financial destinies, but also global markets. The readiness of banks, the adjustments in forex and commodities, and the voices of experts all point to one conclusion. This is no longer speculation. It is structured, strategic, and unfolding. The next chapter lies in the human dimension. How ordinary holders of these currencies will experience this transformation, and how the revaluation will ripple across families, communities, and future generations. The human impact and path forward, the confirmation of Tier 4B, and the revaluation of the Iraqi Dinar ICT and Vietnamese Dong VND is not only a financial milestone. At its heart, this is a profoundly human story. Behind every banknote stored in a safe, tucked away in a drawer, or placed in a deposit box, there is a personal history, a decision made, a sacrifice endured, and a dream nurtured over years. For countless individuals across the globe, this moment represents not simply an increase in wealth, but the validation of their patience, foresight, and resilience. It is a chance to secure a future for themselves, their families, and their communities. But with great opportunity comes profound responsibility. This section explores the human side of the revaluation, the generational impact it may carry, the risks of fraud and misinformation, and the mindset required to move forward wisely. The personal journey of currency holders. Many people who invested in IQD or VND did so years ago, often against the advice of financial professionals or skeptical friends. To some, it looked like nothing more than a gamble on paper money from war-torn or developing nations. Yet for holders, the purchase was not reckless, it was an act of vision. Some stories stand out. Veterans who served in Iraq and brought back dinar notes, holding them as a reminder of the nation's potential. Teachers, nurses, and factory workers who quietly bought small amounts over the years, believing it could one day provide security for retirement or children's education. Families who endured financial hardship but set aside a little savings each month to acquire more currency, clinging to hope for a brighter tomorrow. For this diverse community, the revaluation is not about speculation. It is about survival, dignity, and opportunity. It is about proving that foresight and patience, even in the face of ridicule, can eventually be rewarded. Financial freedom and generational change, the most immediate human impact of the revaluation will be financial freedom. For many holders, this means the ability to pay off long-standing debts such as mortgages, student loans, and credit cards, secure reliable housing and healthcare, retire comfortably without constant financial stress, provide higher education for children or grandchildren without crippling expenses. Beyond personal stability, the revaluation has the potential to spark generational transformation. Families who once struggled paycheck to paycheck may now have the ability to create long-term security. Trusts, estates, and investment funds can be established, ensuring that wealth extends far beyond the immediate generation. This shift could be life-changing, not just for individuals, but for entire family trees, altering legacies for decades to come. Community ripple effects. Wealth does not exist in isolation. When ordinary people gain financial resources, local economies benefit. The ripple effects could include new businesses launched by previously underfunded entrepreneurs, charitable giving directed toward schools, hospitals, and community programs, neighborhood revitalization, as residents invest in property improvements and local services, job creation, as small businesses expand and hire employees. In this sense, the revaluation is not only about personal gain, but about community uplift. It represents a redistribution of wealth from institutional control to grassroots hands, allowing ordinary citizens to invest directly in the well-being of their neighborhoods and regions. The responsibility of wealth opportunity, however, always carries responsibility. Experts caution that this moment should not be viewed as a lottery win, where sudden money often leads to poor decisions and eventual loss. Instead, it should be treated as a serious financial tool requiring discipline and careful planning. The difference between temporary wealth and lasting prosperity lies in mindset. Holders who approach the revaluation with wisdom and restraint will be able to transform newfound resources into enduring stability. Those who rush into lavish spending, risky ventures, or unverified schemes risk losing the very security they waited so long to achieve. The shadow of scams and fraud, where large sums of money are involved, opportunists and criminals inevitably follow. Already, reports have surfaced of fraudulent actors offering exclusive rates in exchange for upfront fees, fake contracts promising faster access to funds, requests for personal banking or identification details under the guise of official processing. Holders must remain vigilant. The safest approach is to rely only on official bank instructions and redemption centers. Avoid sharing sensitive details with unverified parties. Ignore rumors and misinformation circulating in informal online forums or social media groups. Protecting wealth requires the same patience and caution that acquiring it demanded. A single moment of carelessness could undo years of waiting. A shift in mindset, this revaluation, demands a fundamental shift in thinking. From anticipation to responsibility. For years, the focus has been on waiting, believing, and preparing. Now the challenge is to act with maturity and foresight. This means building financial literacy to understand investments, taxes, and long-term planning. Seeking licensed professionals who can tailor strategies to individual needs. Setting priorities that align with values. Stability, family, community, and legacy. The holders of IQD and VND are stepping into a new role, not just as investors but as stewards of wealth. The decisions made in the coming months will determine whether this opportunity becomes a fleeting windfall or a foundation for lasting prosperity. A legacy beyond money. Ultimately, the significance of this revaluation extends beyond dollars and cents. It is about the human qualities that brought holders to this moment: patience, the ability to endure years of uncertainty; faith, believing in the potential of two nations and in the promise of change; resilience, withstanding skepticism, criticism, and repeated delays. This event symbolizes the reward for those virtues. It is a story that future generations will study, not only as a financial milestone, but as an example of ordinary people holding on to extraordinary belief. Conclusion: the confirmation of Tier 4B and the revaluation of the IQD and VND is more than a technical adjustment of exchange rates. It is a human story of perseverance, transformation, and responsibility. For individuals, it offers the chance to escape debt, secure retirement, and create generational wealth. For families, it provides the ability to build legacies of stability and opportunity. For communities, it promises revitalization, philanthropy, and grassroots empowerment. But it also brings a solemn duty to approach this moment with caution, discipline, and foresight. The revaluation is not a finish line. It is a beginning. How holders choose to act in the days and years ahead will determine whether this extraordinary event becomes a fleeting spark or a lasting source of light. The long journey of waiting is over. The chapter ahead is about building, safeguarding, and sharing. The future is no longer a dream. It is here, unfolding, and demanding wisdom. Disclaimer: all content provided by IQD Global Intel is for educational and informational purposes only. We are not financial advisors and do not provide investment, trading, or banking advice. Viewers should always conduct their own research and consult with a licensed financial advisor before making any financial decisions.